It is one of the most enigmatic things in sports. Instincts. The ability at some point for some players to almost have a supernatural ability to see into the future and make the right decision in unbelievable circumstances. To almost seem like they have some sort of insight into what's about to happen. That is what we're talking about today on the BWI Daily Edition. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. Instincts are important in any sport. Basketball, baseball, football, swimming, doesn't matter. Instincts are huge. And that's what I want to talk about today because we don't know a ton about what instincts are. Really, I don't think we have a great definition, or more importantly, where do they come from? And the reason we'll talk about it today, we're talking specifically about the Penn State defensive backs and the defense in general, but their ability to make game-changing plays, to make those high-end, crazy interceptions to get the football back and change the game for the defense. That has been a step where Penn State has struggled in the past and up to this point under James Franklin and defensive coordinator Brent Pry. So we're going to be talking to defensive backs and coaches about where they think that comes from, and most importantly, what instincts are. What are they? How can you define them? And the reason I want to do this is I think it's very important, as Penn State, as I said, hasn't been great at this, but there's more to the story than just the frustration. Because this is one of those areas where, yes, it's almost mystic. And I don't want to take the beauty of sports out of it, but you can have BS artists that say whatever they want about this stuff. And because we don't really know what it is, they just then tack on instinct onto the end of what they said, and then they move on. And you can believe it or not, I want to make sure that we have a good definition and we know what we're talking about. Because if you've watched the Daily Edition, you know who I am. You know I'm all about knowing more and having a better understanding of what's happening. We're going to start today by talking to Big Ten safety, all Big Ten safety, Jaquan Brisker, a guy who has made plays and has a highlight reel himself on defense. And I want to know where he thinks instincts come from.
You can't guess and have instincts. I mean, once you watch film and once you see things in practice, or you just diagnose plays, then it just becomes easy. Once you you keep watching film and things like that, it comes instinctive.
So film study is a big part of this, and it's something that you hear from just about everyone in sports is the ability to know what's about to happen, the intelligence and the dedication to the craft to see things, little cues about what's about to happen, especially if you're a defender, so that you know what's about to happen, because you have to react to the offense. So instincts are so important. And really, teaching that information is what a coach's job is. That is the core of what they do, is not just teaching the fundamentals of the position and how to move your feet or how to use your hands, but how to use your mind to put all of that stuff into use. And defensive back coach, corner coach Terry Smith says that's something he's been doing at a big picture level with his corners so that everyone knows what the defense is doing as a unit, and he's been helped by senior Tariq Castro-Fields.
Tariq's been awesome in that sense. He is the leader of the room. There's times where, I'll get him up and have him draw out a coverage, and not just draw out the two corner positions, but draw the whole back seven, and sometimes the front four as well. So we're just trying to completely develop our guys in the room so they don't just know coverage. They know the entire scheme and what everyone is doing and how everyone fits into the piece for our defense.
So expanding a player's mind when it comes to football is a key part of that, teaching them as much as possible so that they have the information to succeed. And that has been one thing that Penn State, I believe, has done very well when it comes to what they've done on defense in the secondary. They have a long line of very smart football players that have come through and played corner and played safety. The next in that line, and apparently a guy ready to take a next step after having to sit out and watch as a quasi-defensive coordinator last year, is Castro-Fields, who's ready for his redshirt senior season, or his fifth year, to really make an impact and to take that next step.
It's great when you got a veteran guy in the room. Tariq's going on his fifth year, so he's got 4 years of experience, playing experience. Not only that, Tariq is super smart. He's one of those rare guys that, he has a photogenic memory. He sees it once, he can recite it right after that. So it's very unique, and it's going to help him in his NFL career. So he learns very fast, and he helps me to teach in the room.
So that is one area that, again, Penn State has done a good job of, is finding and identifying smart football players that come in and play corner and especially play safety. But it's not just intelligence that is a big part of this. It's not just your smarts as a football player, because they've had those, a long line of those. We'll get to that in a second. But here are the results. Most interceptions by teams in the Big Ten since 2016. Penn State is 10th in this list. And again, Tariq Castro-Fields is a really smart corner. You can go down the list of guys that they've had come in this program all the way back to Grant Haley, whose parents were doctors and has made it in the NFL as an undersized slot corner and has been pretty productive. He had 5 interceptions in his career at Penn State. John Reed, a noted smart guy, a guy who has been lauded for his film study, for his overall intelligence, his communication skills. 7 career interceptions. Garrett Taylor, Nick Scott, just to name a few more at the safety position that were able to play good football but never really make those big plays. Marcus Allen, another guy who was a great football player, famously has 1 interception for the Penn State defense. But it is important to say that these are the next step sort of big-time plays we're talking about. Penn State has been a good defense and has been a good secondary. If we kind of expand our view of what we're looking for and not just look at interceptions, not just getting your hands on the ball, but making plays, Penn State has been much better than they have at just getting interceptions. As you can see, they're 5th in terms of total pass breakups. This means plays where you get your hands on the ball and it may not end in an interception, but you physically caused the receiver to not catch the football. Penn State 5th on that list. They also have had some bad interception luck, and we'll get to luck in just a little bit, but luck is a part of it. And as you can see, the difference, I'd say, where we need to find a little more information, is that the teams that are good at this are at the top, that seem to have cracked the code, where Wisconsin, Ohio State, those teams have clearly been both leaders in interceptions and leaders in pass breakups. So what is it? It's not just about the intelligence, because even when Castro-Fields talks about it, he says the intelligence is one thing, but then it's something else.
I got a lot of wisdom within the system. So as far as learning the system, I really don't have to look at the playbook as much, but just playing more instinctive and making plays on the ball and stuff like that.
So now I think it's interesting to maybe talk to the safeties. Go back and talk to Jair Brown. Juco transfer, played for Penn State a little bit last year as a safety. And if you ask his former teammate at Lackawanna Community College, Jaquan Brisker, the main thing that he can improve this year is simply knowing the defense. Again, Brisker talking about knowing the defense and being in position to make the plays because you're not making mistakes. Now, when Brown talks about it, he offers a different perspective on what instincts are.
Well, your instincts, that's a tough question. Your instincts are just your natural reaction skills, how you react to the ball when the ball is thrown, when you see a running back running out of the backfield, how you react, that quick movement, you got about a second and a half to make that decision. So I can say instincts is just that split second that you make that decision and what you do with it.
That second and a half, that's the key, right? What do you do in that second and a half? That, to me, is if you know what to do, but maybe there's something else. There's something more than just knowing the answer. And for his part, and the part that I would suppose to you, is that it's confidence. It's the ability not just to have the answer, but to then implement the answer. And for Brown, not to say that he is going to be the next sensational defensive back for Penn State, but he is a very confident young man. Of all the guys that we talked to, I was impressed by his composure and at least his outward ability to project confidence into the world. So if that's the answer, if that's the other half of instincts, Where did he learn it from? Will he be able to put it on the field? Well, for his part, he says he learned it very early on in his life.
I can say my composure comes from my mother. You know, growing up, watch my mother do things and just be so composed about it, not showing no emotions and going about things the right way. I just, you know, she's been my hero since I was younger. So everything I've seen from her, I try to imitate as best as I could. And I feel like that's what made me the person I am today.
So the physical traits are one thing. The intelligence to know what's going on the field is another. And then the confidence to play. And it's expressed when you have all three. And for safeties coach Anthony Poindexter, he talks about it much more the way Jair Brown does when he talks about instincts at the position, especially his specialty, which is safety.
For just guys that got natural football instinct, you know, playing safety, I think it's a lot of just natural seeing the ball, knowing angles, and just know how to attack the ball on every play. It all comes at you in different ways each play. So guys that just kind of understand football and have a love and passion for it, and also just being a contact tough person.
So you know that you need instincts, and for a certain point, you can see them. But here's the million-dollar question. Can you teach them? Can you find a guy with all the physical skills in the world and has the intelligence to learn football to a high level? Can you teach him those things that Jair Brown supposedly learned as a young child from his mother? That, maybe.
Obviously, it's a lot easier when the kid bring that trait to you. I think it's like speed. For somebody to say you're going to teach speed, it's, you know, at a certain point you can get a kid faster, but if he's just fast, he fast. Like you're not really. But it also helps when the kid just naturally can do that, and he got a confidence in what he's seeing. So that's why I like to recruit a lot of kids that played on offense, played running back, played wide receiver, multi-sport athletes, basketball player, you know, obviously baseball. You know, if you can track a little white ball that's flying up through the air off of a bat, you should be able to catch a big brown pigskin coming off somebody's arm. So all kinds of stuff that the kid can have it in him, it makes the transition to this level a lot easier. But in a certain instance, you can teach them to be a better, more instinctive football player. And, you know, you just got to learn each kid, though.
So this leads us indirectly to another big topic of conversation, especially in the spring for Penn State football, and that's freshman Kalyn King, because we know that intelligence is a part of it, and we know that the implementation of that intelligence requires something other than just knowledge. Think it's confidence. Think it's the confidence to act, but also maybe a little bit of something else. Maybe a little bit. Remember when we were talking about bad luck? Some guys, they have good luck. And that's what James Franklin, head coach of the Nittany Lions, says about freshman Kalyn King.
You know, he's got ball skills. You know, you want to recruit guys that can play both sides of the ball. He's got tremendous confidence, you know, in his talents. And he's got ball skills. And I know this sounds strange, I know this sounds funny, but he's made some great plays on the ball. But some guys like him, the ball just likes them. Like, he's gotten a couple interceptions where you just throw it to him. And, you know, we had a guy, you know, a few years back that was very similar that played for us. And the ball just likes him. You know, they get a number of turnovers by making great plays, and they get a number that, you know, the ball just tips up and lands in their hands or just thrown to them by a misread. He's one of those guys.
And to me, luck plays into the other two in a way that I think makes a lot of sense. You have to be confident enough to be lucky. You have to be smart enough to be lucky. But you do have to be a little bit lucky sometimes. By the way, he was talking about Amani Oruwariye, who was famously the most productive defensive back when it comes to turnovers at Penn State, of times where he was in position to make plays, and he had the confidence to turn around and look for the football. And he made plays because of that. So for Kalyn King, and as you'll hear in a second, his brother Kobe, do they have the other stuff? Physically, you can see on film, yes. Do they have the work ethic?
He's taken a mature approach, he and his brother Kobe. I mean, these guys are as mature as individuals as you're going to get as freshmen. You know, they're very humble. They know what hard work is. They know what study habits are. And not to say they're perfect, but these guys are working to be early contributors for our team.
So to me, that's what it comes down to. If we want to talk about all the factors that go into making a player that is great at football, it also includes scheme. It includes injuries and the ability to stay healthy and so many other factors that maybe it's a little too big and our brains don't want to put it all into order. And that's fine. But if we boil it down to just two things, the thing I think we've learned today is that you have to be smart enough to play football and to know what's about to happen. And then you need to have the confidence to act on that information. It's a yin and the yang of football. It's the complete picture. Football is not just for giant, big, fast, strong people. And it's not just for people that are smarter than everybody else that can design and scheme up plays and coverages. You have to be both. You have to have that, the ability to let your body take over at a certain point, and the mind, if you're thinking, you're not reacting. And to me, that's the closest definition that I've been able to come up with for what instincts really are. The intelligence to know what happens and the ability to let your mind go and your body react. And when you sprinkle that on top with a little bit of luck, you have a lot of turnovers. Maybe that'll be what the case is for Penn State football this year, but we're going to have to find out. They have some really interesting pieces from an all Big Ten safety who has all American potential in Jaquan Brisker, to the most talented team in the cornerback room that Penn State has had under James Franklin, according to James Franklin, with at least 4 guys with 4 or 5-star potential. So being able to unlock all of those skills, all that vast physical talent, comes down to these two things, in my opinion. And when you got guys that bring that into the program in Kalyn King, that's why you have a freshman who people are talking about as if he's going to be a big part of what happens this fall. Penn State training camp going on right now, and those things are happening at the moment. So stay tuned to Blue White Illustrated for all the information, not just on this, but on everything when it comes to Penn State football here on the BWI Daily Edition. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr, and on the other things that we've got going on, including bwi.rivals.com. By the way, coming out soon, we have the next edition of Blue White Illustrated, so be on the lookout for that. Here's a preview of the cover. Pretty dope. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and to YouTube for the BWI Daily Edition. We'll talk again tomorrow.